Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. So it's time to have another little reform watch as Zia Yosf's lies about Kent County Council have once again been exposed, and Darren Grimes demonstrate just how thick he is again as he forgets that he's in Reform UK. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button, stay notified. So, recording in here today because, actually maybe tomorrow as well, my studio is going under a bit of a reorganisation. So anyway, I don't think anyone other than those conned by Reform UK really thought that their attitude towards running councils was going to be serious. So for those involved in running Reform UK's newly captured councils, I think they sort of seem to be split into three different types. You've got those who are deliberately working to deceive local people, such as Zia Yosf. There are those who are waking up to the fact that actually running local government isn't as easy as they thought it would be. And there are those who've woken up to it and have decided to get out of there. They've resigned within a matter of weeks. But the most damaging of these three camps, of course, are those who are abusing the newly won councils to deceive people into continuing to vote for fantasies which will only make them poorer. And top of the list is Reform UK's answer to the boomerang, Zia Yosf, who resigned from the party because it was getting a bit too racist, only to come back a couple of days later when the party was just as racist for no readily explored reason. A couple of weeks ago, Zia Yosf claimed that Kent County Council were using taxpayer money for TV licences for asylum seekers. Needless to say, it's not even close to being true, but before I get onto the source of his lies, what was his purpose? Well, it's twofold. First of all, the unsubtle part of the lie, the one that jumps out of you, it's an attack on asylum seekers as the most vulnerable group of immigrants in the country against whom it is easiest to stir up racial hatred, despite there being relatively few in Britain. It's a very, very small proportion of overall immigration. The second, it's another attack on the BBC. Now, the far right have been attacking the notion of the licence fee for years in an effort for public funding to be removed from the outlet. They want the BBC to be privately controlled so that another right-wing media baron can buy it in order to get their propaganda out to a wider audience. Although, you know, we talk about the fact that much of the mainstream media is effectively owned and controlled by just a handful of very right-wing billionaires, the BBC has the biggest reach in this country when it comes to news. Like, more people get their news on the BBC than most other outlets put together, quite frankly. And so the idea of being able to control the BBC for a private individual, very, very tasty. And I know the BBC fails in impartiality all the time, but that's accidental. Imagine what it would be like if, say, Murdoch or Rothermere or someone similar bought it. This is why they never miss an opportunity to attack the idea of paying the licence fee. But that explains why Yosf made the statement. It doesn't explain why it's not true. So for that, enter Barely Politics, one of the debunkers whom I follow on Twitter, who's very good at exposing lies like this. So they attempted to contact Zia Yosf because, like everyone else, they looked at this claim and thought, that doesn't really sound right. So attempted to contact Zia Yosf about the claim, who didn't respond. But an actual councillor from Kent County Council, remember, Zia Yosf is not a councillor. He's got no elected role in Kent County Council. No one's voted for him for anything. But an actual councillor who has been elected did respond and explained what was going on. So first of all, the TV licences were for shared accommodation for children in care. Not asylum seekers, just children in care. Second, it was paid for by the Home Office. So it's not true that Kent County Council have paid for these TV licences at all. In fact, Yosf didn't even twist the truth there. He just lied. Just like he's lied about other so-called expenditure of the council. And although the money came from national government, so yeah, technically taxpayer money, it was for children in care. You know, these don't have parents, right? Who is seriously going to say that children in care shouldn't be allowed a television. And no, they don't get one each. Right? It's shared accommodation. That was made very clear by the counsellor who did provide the accurate information. And again, it's not even like you're just talking about, oh, but these children are still asylum seekers. It's like, well, you're still pretty heartless for saying a child shouldn't be able to have a little bit of telly. But no, actually not. Children in care, including British children in care, they're not all refugees. So the money is being spent for British children in shared accommodation. It just so happens that some unaccompanied child refugees may be in the same shared accommodation. And these lies need calling out as much as possible, but it also leads into something new. So now that Zia Yosf is no longer chair of Reform UK, he's just the head of their Doge unit, right? It's his job to find waste in council spending, right? That is it. That is his one job. Now, this leads into Reform UK's leader of Lincolnshire County Council, which is next door to me. He claims he's looking for over £25 million of savings for next year's budget. Now, that is, just to put in context, about 3.6% of the entire budget as far as I can tell. So quite a chunk. Ordinarily, you try telling any organisation it's got to make 3.6% savings, and it'll be like, okay, what? How are we going to do that without reducing the quality of our service, right? Now, he's blamed the national government for not providing enough funds. Councils will always do that. But he's also said he will cut waste. So he's saying services shouldn't be affected. Now, let's break those two things down, because it's crucial in judging how Reform UK run their councils after they've had time to set their budgets. Now, the first thing is this attack on national government overfunding. Now, the Tories, as soon as they came to power in 2010, absolutely started savagely cutting the council grants. So councils get their funding mostly from two main sources. The first is locally raised taxes like council tax, business rates, things like that. The second is from grants directly from central government, which comes from normal central taxation. Since 2010, the Conservatives had savagely cut down the council grants, so the money coming from central government, to the point where it's pretty much been reduced by like 40–50%. So it has been savagely cut, that is true. However, since coming to power, Labour have actually boosted that, not right back to where it was in 2010, but they have boosted it in real terms. So significantly above the level of inflation, in fact, several percent above the level of inflation. So they don't get to blame national government, because actually at the point at which they took over, they were receiving above inflation boost to the grant. Secondly, they competed for these councils, so they took part in the election knowing the financial settlement. Labour haven't done anything to the grant since they took power, so they don't get to blame that. They've walked into it eyes wide open. So, and they're getting, as I say, they're getting more money than their predecessors had in real terms. But then we come to this idea of cutting waste. Now, this is what Reform UK fought the elections on. It's an old dodge as well. Politicians do it all the time. Oh yeah, we can save money by cutting waste, because no one wants services cut. But everyone likes the idea of delivering the same services for less money, right? So that's what they've said. They were not going to cut services. They were just going to cut the money that's been spent on things which produces nothing useful, right? Which links back to Zia Yosf's claim about fantasy council spending waste. It's not just the TV licenses, come out with lots of stuff as well. Oh, I found they're spending this on this, and people have gone, no, they're not. But his lies aside, people should challenge Reform UK in a year's time on this. They are claiming that they're finding all this waste, right? Okay, great. So we will then expect them to be able to make their savings without chopping any services which the public will notice then, yeah? If not, they need to be hammered on it. They need to be, because they specifically stood on a platform of cutting waste, not services. So if they cut services, they need to be asked, were they lying about the waste, or were they just too incompetent to find and eliminate it without harming services, right? Has to be one or the other. We know that Zia Yosf has lied about source of waste because he's been exposed. But we also know that many of them are incompetent as well. Byline Times have reported on some Reform UK councillors, including Darren Grimes, who didn't even seem to be aware that they were members of Reform UK when asked. And no, I'm not joking. As part of the process for actually any elected politicians, whether in local government, national government, wherever, he and his fellow Reform Gumbies had to fill out declarations of interest forms. So you have to put down your associations, things like that, so that the public can know which groups you're part of, you know, who donates to you, lots of things, so that we can work out whether our elected officials are acting in our interests or someone else's, right? So that obviously includes having to put down any political organisations you are part of. At the very least, that will be your political party. Unless you're an independent, you are part of a political party, you need to put that down. Can include other groups as well. Seems that Grimy and his buddies forgot they were in Reform UK because it doesn't seem to appear on their declarations. Mind you, I must keep reminding people that Darren Grimes was once convicted for financial offences related to the Brexit referendum campaign. Naughty boy. But he was acquitted, so in the eyes of the law, he's innocent. He was acquitted on appeal based on a defence of being too thick to know what he was doing. Which won. Quite incredible. You don't often see people win an acquittal on the basis of being thick. If Reform UK ever decide to atone for their crimes, you know, in dividing the nation, and they want to do something to unite people, they could probably do a lot worse than putting on like a celebrity mastermind with the likes of Lee Anderson and Darren Grimes on it. We could do with a laugh. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, please subscribe to the channel. You could join for streams and behind the scenes updates as well. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.